Hello, my name is Dojiri, and I'm the Assistant General Manager for LA Sanitation and Environment. And today I would like to present the Biodiversity Program of the City of Los Angeles. But before I do, I want to give you an introduction or a background information on the City of Los Angeles. The city is considered one of 36 hotspot cities. In order to be designated or selected as a hotspot city, there has to be a high level of endemism in the city, and many of those species need to be at risk of disappearing from the area. And the city of Los Angeles actually falls and satisfies both of those requirements. The second one, of course, is unfortunate. We do have 3,500 vascular plant species, with 61% of them being endemic, that is found here and nowhere else. And many of the species are unfortunately at risk of disappearing from the area. The city of Los Angeles is located in the California floristic province. This is characterized by a Mediterranean climate, hot, dry summers, cool, wet winters, and diverse microclimates. There are a wide range of ecosystems within the city, various kinds of forests, shrublands, marshes, and dunes. Now, why is biodiversity so important, and why is it so urgent? Scientists believe that we are currently in the midst of the 6th mass extinction. United Nations reports that 1 million plant and animal species will go extinct within the next few decades. Globally, we have lost a large percentage of our bees. In the US, it's been estimated that we have lost 40 to 50% of our bees. In China, I've read that up to 75% of the bee population has been lost. 97% of animal biomass today is humans or our domesticated animals, our dogs, cats, horses, cows, and pigs, etc. Only 3% are wildlife. This is kind of an alarming statistic. By 2050, which is less than 30 years from now, there may be no commercial fisheries. There will be more plastics in the ocean than fish. These are the statistics that make biodiversity so important and so urgent. So what does the city of Los Angeles have been doing? In 2017, the City Council passed the Biodiversity Motion. It designated my department, the LA Sanitation and Environment, LASAN for short, as the lead department for the Biodiversity Program to protect and enhance biodiversity. The ultimate objective was to create a biodiversity index specifically for the city of Los Angeles to measure progress on our biodiversity goals. The mayor of the city of Los Angeles established several goals in his 2019 sustainability plan, which ultimately evolved into the LA's Green New Deal, whose target was to achieve and maintain no net loss of native biodiversity by 2035. So what did our LASAN biodiversity team do? We convened a group of biodiversity experts, academics from various local universities, ecologists, ecosystem experts, conservationists, plant and animal taxonomists, educators, and landscape designers and architects, among others. We called this group the Expert Council, and they are a very important group of experts who have helped us with our biodiversity program. So we met on August 30th and 31st of 2017, and the goal was to measure the biodiversity within the city of Los Angeles using the Singapore Index. And what we came up with was a score of 48 out of a possible 72 potential points using the Singapore index. We were actually quite surprised with that number, that score. That was a lot higher than we expected. Then we set out to design the LA City Biodiversity Index. We used the Singapore index as the starting point. We revised it based on recommendations from this Biodiversity Expert Council. We retained some metrics, we modified others, and we incorporated new metrics because some of the metrics in the Singapore index were not well suited for the city of LA, or some of the data was just very difficult or impossible to get our hands on. So we ended up with an LA Biodiversity Index consisting of 3 major categories, or what we call themes, and 8 indicators and 25 metrics. And you'll see the table on the right here, the 3 themes, the 8 indicators, and the 25 metrics. I am not going to go through all 25 of these metrics, but I will give you some examples. So for theme 1, native species protection and enhancement, there are 3 indicators: habitat quality, indicator species, and threats to native biodiversity. You'll see the map on the left, and it depicts habitat quality in the city of LA. And the dark purple areas indicate high quality habitats. And they coincide with mountain ranges that surround the city of Los Angeles. What you will note, however, is that there are small patches, several patches actually, of high quality habitats that are scattered throughout the city of Los Angeles. In the indicator species group, we can measure the presence of native species in urban areas. For threats to native biodiversity, we can measure the presence and spread of invasive plants, and also the frequency of wildfire, just as examples of metrics. Theme 2 is social equity considerations and biodiversity. This theme also has 3 indicators: access to biodiversity, education, and community action. Access to biodiversity includes access to natural areas. We measure this as a percentage of population that live within a half mile of natural areas. This indicator also includes neighborhood landscape tree canopy footprint. The education indicator includes whether biodiversity is actually taught in our schools at various grades, and also includes a number of off-campus biodiversity educational visits and the number of campuses that have nature education gardens and areas. The indicator of community action includes community scientist activities and app utilization. This graphic on the right is a heat map of the locations and extent of community science activities and app utilization. This community action indicator also includes the number of certified biodiversity friendly areas. Theme 3, governance and management of biodiversity, includes only 2 indicators: governance and management. Governance includes whether the city has a biodiversity vision and action plan, and also includes the percent of city departments with biodiversity programs and policies. The management indicator includes protected natural areas and management of invasive species and management of threatened and endangered species. Metric 3.1 2B is protected natural areas management and monitoring. And this graphic on the right shows the location of protected natural areas as well as their aerial coverage. Now that the index has been developed, we need to measure the biodiversity index for the city of LA. Each metric will be distilled to an easily interpretable score associated with a single graphic, map, or table. Performance of the entire index will be tracked over time via color-coded pie charts. Each of the 25 metrics comprises the pie, and the darker shade indicates an increase in performance. We will have two different types of assessments. The first is the benchmark assessment, and we will conduct this once every 10 years. And this will be a comprehensive and pretty detailed assessment of our biodiversity index, and each of the 25 metrics will be scored from 1, which is a low score, to a high of 5. In intervening years, that is every 3 years, we will conduct monitoring assessments. And these will be slightly rougher and more relative. And what I mean by that is that we will see if the individual metric is increasing, staying the same, or decreasing, and give values of just simply negative, neutral, or positive. Due to the varied landscape of Los Angeles, metrics will be measured within smaller management units that we call ecotopes. What we have done is we have divided the city into various subregions using landform, microclimates, and aerial coverage of vegetation, so vegetation cover. So we take those 3 layers and overlay them on top of each other, and that essentially divides the city into subregions or management units. And we have identified 17 of these management units that we call ecotopes. Measuring metrics for individual ecotopes within the city limits will enable the city to better track and manage biodiversity in Los Angeles, and we will be able to better focus on specific areas that really need improvement. As an example, measuring natural areas using the Singapore Index versus the ecotope framework in the LA City Biodiversity Index gives you a really good example and shows the distinctness and the differences between the two indices. If we measure the percent area, natural areas using the Singapore Index, we get a total of 20.6%. That means that 20.6% of the city of Los Angeles comprises natural areas. So that gives us a score of 3 out of a maximum of 5 for the Singapore Index for this particular metric. 20.6% natural area in an urban environment is actually pretty good. But if we use the ecotope framework for the LA Biodiversity Index, you'll see a very different picture. You'll see 17 different ecotopes. The light green to medium green to the olive green indicates or depicts an increasing percentage of natural areas. What I want you to note, however, on this graphic are the gray areas. The gray areas indicate or depict a percent natural area of less than 1%. In fact, the city of the San Fernando Valley has 0.5% natural areas, and the area around Santa Monica is similar, but actually lower at 0.2%. And The downtown area is about 0.5 or so, and so on. So this gives a very different picture than the Singapore index, and it allows our biodiversity team to really focus on areas, that is ecotopes, that really need help in improving the biodiversity index in those regions. So what we've done is we have produced a 2020 biodiversity report, which consists of the LA Biodiversity Index, the ecotopes framework, and preliminary wildlife connectivity work or wildlife corridor work, along with 6 case studies to give an example of what can be done in certain areas within the city to improve the biodiversity index. You can download the full report at lacitysan.org/biodiversity. If your city is interested in creating a customized biodiversity index, you don't need to start from scratch. You can use an existing index as a launching point and tailor indicators to your local context. You can customize your city index based on available data, because if the data isn't available, it's just too hard to get, then that metric is not going to be worthwhile or valuable. And you can also customize your index to specific goals and targets that your city is interested in. And certainly you can use the City of LA's 2018 and 2020 biodiversity reports as wonderful resources for you to follow. One thing I would like to mention as I start to close my presentation is that collaborations are crucial to the success of biodiversity programs. I highly recommend that you develop strong partnerships with universities, because they will provide feedback on work products and engage their students in research projects. For example, local universities like UCLA, USC, and Occidental College were very valuable to our biodiversity program and continue to be so. Government agencies, interdepartmental collaborations at the city, and coordination with outside agencies, for example, the National Park Service and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And certainly partnerships with community members are highly recommended and very valuable to the program. Prominent stakeholders for community education and outreach, for example, the National Wildlife Federation and the Tree People. I also recommend that you reach out to international cities, and you can do that by registering for Cities with Nature. Cities with Nature is a type of environmental Facebook. It is essentially a resource sharing hub. Share your ideas and also learn from cities from around the world. LA is a pioneer city. We are one of the first 100 cities to register for Cities with Nature. That concludes my presentation. I apologize for not being there live to address any questions that you may have. But if you do have any questions, please visit our lasan.org/biodiversity and review our 2018 Biodiversity Report, as well as our 2020 Biodiversity Report. Whatever questions you have will probably be addressed in both of those reports. If, however, you prefer to ask questions to me directly, you are more than welcome to do so by emailing me at mas.dojiri, that's Dojiri, at lacity.org. Thank you for attention, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.